Hello, and welcome to Superbrain, the podcast for everyone with a brain. My name is Sabina Brennan, and I am so glad you could join me today. Grab your headphones and dial up your attention because you'll need to listen carefully to keep track of my conversation with hilarious comedian Joanne McNally. It's a fun and somewhat chaotic episode as we jump from one random topic to the next. I'm really not quite sure how we hopped from baby haters and maternal instinct to gay penguins and surrogate eggs, but we did. We also talked about dying alone, drinking and clickbait. Yes, you heard me correctly. Enjoy. So you and I actually met when you were filming. There was a documentary being made about you called the wonderful title of
Baby Hater.
And basically you were exploring why, whether you were normal or not in not wanting to have
Children.
children.
It was what happened was I was with the guy I was with at the time. My boyfriend at the time was very against children. Like, it was not a runner. It was never going to be a runner. And I was trying to decide if that was like what did I think about that? And I remember speaking to you about like this idea of maternal instinct, and I didn't have any craving to have a child. But what someone had said, the thing that started the documentary was someone had said to me once, have a baby because you'll never regret having it, but you could regret not having it. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Is that true? Like, do you never regret having a baby? And that's what happened with the and so we went and found all these people who regretted having a baby. That's basically what happened. And Baby Hater, the title came from, well, obviously we liked it because it was a bit
controversial.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a woman who had written this book saying that she had been described as a baby hater, because she didn't want to have kids. So I learned a lot.
Learned a lot about yourself. I mean, I was just kind of, for those who haven't seen the documentary, what I was explaining, I was just brought in as the kind of psychologist or neuroscientist to kind of explain a bit. And it was, for me, it was, you were saying, I don't have any maternal instinct.
Yeah.
And I was kind of saying, but you're not a mother yet.
Yeah.
So the maternal instinct kicks in after you have a baby.
And I remember you saying that so clearly. I remember we were sitting on the steps in Trinity, and it really resonated with me. But I also think some women are determined, like whatever that determination is to start a family that I don't have. There's something like, what is that? Like, there's something, I'm not going to say missing, because it's not missing, it's just different. But like, and because of my age now, well, I'm 36, but if anyone in the BBC asks, I'm 32, because I'm in the middle of pitching all this youth stuff. But they're all at it now, where it's like this rush now, because obviously society, like culturally, we've totally changed, and women aren't really traditionally getting like knocked up at 20 now and getting married, blah blah blah. Like, they want to live their lives, they want to establish careers, they want to do all those things, but our bodies haven't changed. Our bodies are still,
there's a time period,
Exactly.
a window in which you can have a baby.
Exactly. So like, culturally things are different, but biologically things are the same. So everyone's kind of panicking now, and obviously the older you get, the harder it gets. And there's this, like, it's almost like a last chance saloon. Everyone, every friend's house I'm in at the moment, there's pregnancy tests everywhere. And like, one of my mates has just bought a load of, she's pregnant now with some lad from Denmark, and she's 43, she's going to do it on her own. And it's that thing of like, obviously the panic of like, I don't want to die alone. And also, what else am I going to do with my life? Like,
can we roll that back from wanting to have a baby to, whoa, I don't want to die alone?
Yeah. Well, that's the payoff. You're like, do I choose just me, or do I choose to kind of multiply myself and branch out and build almost like this skeletal support system around you by having like a spouse and kids and stuff? And is it worth it?
So that doesn't come with a guarantee either.
No, it doesn't.
Because I'm kind of at the other end. So mine have moved out. Like, I firmly believe that everybody has a super brain, and you're harnessing your super brain. You have to pull in all of your resources when you're standing up on stage to be sharp, funny, remember, in the moment, be able to respond to a heckler. Your brain is on.
I remember when I first started in comedy, because I love wine, right? Like, I love wine, okay? And like, I used to drink at gigs
before you performed.
So in my mind, we were all out having fun. It was a party. I was in a bar. They were all drinking. Comics drink. That's what we do. And like, I stopped because I had this disastrous gig where I was basically completely shit-faced and the whole thing was a disaster. And I hadn't realised, because I was doing this venue and they kept giving me booze, because they want to make you feel welcome. So, and alcohol just plays this massive part in comedy, and there's so many alcoholics who are comics, and then the other half of comics who don't drink at all because they were drinking too much, blah, blah, blah. Plus you're on your own so much, you almost drink for company. It's like to pass the time, that way. But the difference because I like doing a lot of crowd work, and the speed of my brain, like even one glass of wine and you're so much slower. You're just so much slower. And I was reading this article recently about, because I'm obsessed with women and wine o'clock, and this, that we think we're having this chic experience, but actually there's more women presenting as alcoholics now than ever before, particularly in Ireland, and that you can actually give yourself slight brain damage from drinking too much. And I'm like, oh my God. And like my mother isn't an alcoholic, that's not what I'm saying, but she's 70 something now, and we're pretty close, and like I freak out when I'm in the house if I feel she's having like a dothery moment. I get panicked because I've only got one parent left, so I'm like, I have to like keep her I want her immortal, basically. So I'm freaking out, and I'm like, keep saying to her, like, do the crosswords. Like,
well, I'll give her my book, right?
Do the crosswords.
I'll give her a copy of my book.
Yeah, do,
I'm
please.
not here because
it might be too late for her.
I'll send you no, it won't be too late. But that's interesting. So I mean, the thing is, and it's funny again about our Irish relationship with alcohol. So I get brought in, to do radio sometimes when there's like a publication about alcohol and risk for dementia or whatever, and will you come in and explain what that paper means or whatever. And actually, really what the research shows, that even moderate consumption of alcohol can impact on your cognitive functioning, how sharp you are, the thing that you're experiencing, on a day-to-day basis, that you'll perform much better without it. Whenever I talk about those things, and I'm not on preaching, I'm saying this is what the science says. The producer tells me that the amount of text messages that they get in, nanny state, don't tell us what we can or can't do. I'm not telling anyone what they can or can't do, but I think it's really important to let people know that's something, because the whole, and imagine it the other way around. Nobody told us that alcohol is killing my brain cells.
I know. But like that's it, once you know what you're doing, like some people will decide, do you know what, I'll take a bit of brain damage so that I can have my drinks and do that and all that jazz. But like I'm freaked about it at the moment, because I feel like I don't want alcohol can't be part of my routine in the way that it is. Like when I'm on stage, like your adrenaline's so high, and I come off stage and I don't know how to come down without drink. I don't know how to do it.
It's very hard. I do get the same experience from talks. You have a whole audience and energy, and you build up to it, and then you come off and you kind of feel, that's done. And it's almost like a reward, and I have done it without alcohol, but also too, it kind of is one of those ways, like I'd be partial to a G&T, and it's just like,
and it's psychological as well. You're like, it's like smoking. I used to smoke, and I gave it up because, well, I don't want a mouth that looks like an anus, basically. The lines and all.
Yeah, and I gave up at 35.
You've got no lines there.
Oh, I have. They're there.
Really?
Yeah. If you can see it, I started smoking, at about the age of 12, and then I gave up at 35. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so funny. Like back in the day, you could just, do you remember we used to buy chocolate fags? Like they'd sell those chocolate fags, and we just smoked them as children. We thought we were so cool.
There was actually ones that were white. They were gorgeous. They were real sweet. They were little white ones and little pink tips. You're probably too young to remember that.
Remember them?
They looked like they were lit. Yeah, they were kind of chewy, like Dolly mixture sweets.
It was just so glam. I remember putting on my mum's heels and walking around the patio so I could hear the click, 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 smoking biros, smoking chocolate pens, wearing her pearls, or chocolate cigarettes. I just thought it was so glamorous.
Yeah, I only did it actually. It actually hadn't entered my head. We just started secondary school, and I was at a school reunion 3 weeks ago. That's why it's sharp in my mind. And this girl who was one of the coolest girls in the class, and she was from actually a really wealthy family. Her sandwiches, I used to take my sandwiches to school, like in I think it was Johnson's. It wasn't Brennan's bread then, but whatever. So my sandwiches used to be in the bottom of what was the bread. She used to have this pink tissue paper folded over her sandwiches, and the crusts were cut off it, and I might have corned beef and she'd have ham, so she was this real cool girl, and for some reason she said to me, come on, do you want to come up to St. Anne's and we'll have a cigarette? And we bought 10 cigarettes, and of course neither of us wanted to bring them the packet back home. So we smoke 5 each.
Of course, yeah. That's what we used to do instead of going to mass. We'd go up, buy 10 John Player Blue in the shop, sit up the hill, chain smoke them, take the pamphlet from the church, go home, pretend we because my mum would be like, what was the gospel?
Yeah.
Anyway,
people
now
who
the
smoke
smell
have,
of it, I'm like,
thinner, people who smoke have thinner cortices than people who don't smoke. So that means they've kind of got less brain.
What?
Yeah, it deprives your brain of oxygen, and it's really, really bad for your brain, aside from the toxins. But
God,
the good news
it's a surprise I can read or write.
The good news is, yeah, me too. The good news is, and that's it. Once you give up, you know, you can rejuvenate and restore it back. So it's not all lost, sort of thing.
It's all vanity for me. Like, it's so hard. Like,
that's why I gave up.
Yeah,
with
it's
the
vanity.
lines.
Thank God for
it's
vanity.
Dreadful.
Like, I can't see my lungs or my liver.
Yeah.
I can't. If I could see them, maybe I'd be freaked out, but I can't. So the only thing I can really see is my face.
Yeah.
And obviously, as a woman working in showbiz, you're at risk of becoming invisible at some stage. You have like 5 years and whatever, and then you just cast as the granny for the rest of your life. So I'm like, okay, oh my God, I have to look after my face. I asked Deirdre O'Kane, this comic, who I adore, when I started, I was like, do you have any advice? And she was like, invest all your money. And I was like, oh great, she's going to tell me like bonds or something. She goes, into your face. And I was like, boom. And she's dead right.
She just turned 50 actually. I think
she looks fab.
Yeah.
So thank God, that's what made me stop drinking and not stop drinking, reduce drinking and stop smoking.
So you don't drink before your shows? I couldn't drink before
No,
I work.
I don't drink now. No.
Wouldn't work. But it's actually a good way. I don't know whether you have too. You see, I kind of have a hyperactive brain, and sometimes it helps to switch off. But I do prefer, sometimes I went 10 whole years without drinking anything. And
that.
Sometimes I go, I'm just about to I will be locking myself away now to work on another project, and I will cut out the alcohol altogether. And actually, to be honest, I prefer not to, but it's just once you kind of get into a bit of a habit.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is with anything. You just have to work a bit to break the habit.
I do like advice though. Like, I just read an article for the Irish Independent about in defense of alcohol. Like, I think everything's becoming very sanitized, and like people are very, and I'm not talking about alcoholics, but I mean people, the younger generation, they're not drinking, and that's great, that's brilliant. But I do like advice. I like being able to alter my state. Like you do with the coffee in the morning. I like having a drink in the evening.
Coffee is a drug. Caffeine is a drug.
Everything's a drug.
That changes, so you know that has chemical reactions you know, in your brain as well. But no, I kind of, and for me as well, it's funny with cigarettes, what I missed most about smoking, well, I used to miss it after meals, and I used to miss it just before an exciting story. I'd say no, hold on, and I take a
coffee
cigarette.
fag.
Yeah, want to hear it. But I actually missed the boldness of it, the fact that it was a bold thing to do, you know, and if people were going outside, it's kind of funny, it's interesting, and I think that's why it's complex to try and get people to quit smoking, because we smoke for lots of different reasons.
Mine is like anxiety or adrenaline. That's what it is. And like, I don't have an anxiety disorder. I think anxiety is just part of being alive. And adrenaline, the same thing. So I'm trying to dilute it. And it's something physical dilutes it, whether it be alcohol or a cigarette. So like, I mean, if I could learn to just sit with my feelings, but I'd rather not do that. I'm very Irish.
It's interesting. I talk about stress, you know, and one of the things I do is managing stress. So stress is not bad.
Yeah.
You need stress. You need the stress response to get up on stage.
Yeah.
You need the stress response to do, you know, like challenge is really, really important kind of for keeping your brain working. Most people kind of coast along, and it's like your mother said, she doesn't feel needed. And like I was saying, you have to have purpose, you have to have goals, you have to kind of keep wanting to achieve something. That's kind of what life is about. And in order to do that, the stress response has to kick off, which involves the release of cortisol, but it also involves the release of adrenaline from your adrenal glands. And so what I kind of say to people sometimes if I'm giving talks is close your eyes for a minute and think about what it feels like in your gut when you're stressed. Okay, now forget about that and close your eyes and think about what it feels like in your gut when you're really, really excited. And there's like, what's the difference? There's none. It's the exact same thing, because all it is the release of adrenaline in your gut, and it's how you name it. But the thing is, it's like you're saying, so you've had you've had adrenaline released before you go on stage, because you need that. Everything is sharper.
Yeah.
Everything. That's why the stress response is really cool. It really helps. Everything's sharp, alert. You'll find those words. You'll be clicking on overdrive. Unnecessary functions will be shut down, like digestion, and even if you have a cold, your cough will be suppressed. You'll be able to perform for the whole thing without breaking into a cough. So that's still kind of flying around your system when you come down, when you come off stage, and it is going to take time.
But like I totally respect nerves and adrenaline, love it. I understand it's necessary, but sometimes it can overtake.
Yes.
And the physical, you start shaking. And so I've had like 2 really big gigs in my life where I've taken a Xanax before them, because because I knew, I was like, I'm going to, can I curse?
Yeah.
Fuck this up. If I'm going to go out there shaking, and the second an audience sees that you're nervous, it's over.
And how did that affect? Because something like a Xanax can make you less sharp. You nailed it.
Yeah, because it just took the
edge,
hysteria off. Like it did. Like it took the hysteria off. I was settled. I was still.
Yeah.
My mind was completely clear. And I was relaxed. It relaxed me because I knew there was too much at stake. There was so much at stake at the gigs. They weren't even large audience gigs, but like industry gigs, things like
so
that.
You had psychologically, you had built it up to be so big. So psychologically,
I would have blacked out up there.
Yeah,
I just want the nerves got so much that they overtook. I couldn't think rationally or think straight. I was like just like this mess.
Yeah,
and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. So I took a Xanax, and they were both wonderful gigs.
Yeah, except you wouldn't want to make a habit of that.
No. Well, I'd love to, but I can't. I don't have
not.
access to Xanax. I hate feeling anything. I don't want to feel anything. I don't want to feel nerves, sadness, nothing. Just want to float along blissfully.
Well, yeah. And can I just ask you something in terms of what's really interesting is I love laughter and smiling are actually superb for the brain. They're one of my tips, on how to keep your brain healthy. So like keep up the good work. Like you're making people's brains fitter and sharper and better. But I'm curious to know actually about your process when you write material. So obviously you're like you've got great powers of observation.
I don't have any process, and I'm not just saying that. No, I have no
I'm
process.
Just really interested,
I wish I had a process. Like I know some like I'll write some stuff like a book. Like I'll sit down and write it like a column or a piece.
Yeah.
And then I'll have another notebook where I just like write down little ideas about things, and then it just kind of I mash them together, and then whatever. And then sometimes on stage something will happen as well. Like I'm going home now to Ireland for a couple of days to do like 4 new material nights because I have to start writing my Edinburgh show, and it will be a mess. It'll be like notes. Some of it will be like what I tend to do is for the Edinburgh show this year that I did in 2019, so last year, I wrote it like you'd write a book and read it out on stage on day one and saw what had potential to be stand-up and what didn't. I don't even know if that's the right thing to do. It kind of worked for me eventually, but it took me 7 months to get that written piece into stand-up comedy. So it's a very slow, very difficult process.
It is a process in the sense that like what I think is interesting is there so you write some stuff down, like you sit down like anyone will try and write. But then, as you said, you have another notebook for when just ideas come. And I kind of call those, that's what I was curious is when do those ideas come? They come when you're not actively writing. So one of those is the actively writing.
Yes.
And the other is there's a thing, and it just pops in your head. You could be shopping, you could be in the bath, you could be,
and it's usually that's why I can justify spending so much time with my friends, even though I really don't get to see them that much at the moment, because that's where they're like brainstorming sessions. So like I find it very difficult to get up in the morning, sit down, write stuff, and it be hilarious. I need my brain to like be fired by conversations with other people. So I'll try and meet people for lunch. I'll try and go for drinks with people. I'll try and chat to people on the phone. Yeah. Like, and the thing about comedy is it's so insular. Like as a stand-up, you're on your own. Like obviously you work for yourself, by yourself, with yourself. You gig in the evenings, but you're in, you're out, you're not hanging around. They're like, you know, it's a work thing. So you're like, where does the material come from then if you're just sitting in hotels on your own all the time, or sitting on a train on your own all the time? So that's why I have to put time in to like chat to my mates, and I get most of my material from them.
But that's life. So that's interacting, and so that's what I mean by observational. You're kind of observing things from life, and that they're things that people connect to. I always think that's what's really good in comedy, you know, if you know, when there's that truth behind it. In some instances it's just too cringeworthy, you know, like that you're gonna go, no, I can't listen to that. And that's genius comedy as well, you know.
That's why I'm like, they say it takes you 10 years to find your voice in comedy, and I'm just coming into my 6th. And I remember when I heard that, I was like a year in, and I was like, bullshit, I don't have 10 years, I'm gonna find my voice straight away. And I still haven't really. I'm still torn between, do I make it personal to me, or do I write very kind of broadly, you know, the Michael McIntyre style stuff where, I mean, I think he's like a little genius, but do you write, isn't it gas when we all do this, or do you tell your own story? And at the moment, I think my stand-up is kind of a mix of both those things. So no process, but maybe I do have a process, I'm just not aware of it.
Well, so
panic is usually part of the process. Deadlines, time.
Time. But the thing is, you see, as always, I'm kind of fascinated from the brain perspective, and a lot of people, and this just doesn't apply to comedy, but a lot of us feel that we're not working unless we're actively trying to do things. So like you just said it there, actively trying to write, that, you know. And the interesting thing in this sort of applies across a lot of creative things. Yes, there's a place for that, because, you know, it's conscious, and you're thinking, and maybe I'll do that theme or whatever. So what we've forgotten about, a lot of us in modern, certainly Western society, is that our brain is actually really incredible organ, and it's amazing. So when you're sitting sort of resting or daydreaming, not actively engaged in a task. So first of all, I should just track back. Your brain, when you're sitting here and when I'm sitting here, it's got 86 billion cells, right? And trillions of connections between them. And that's how the brain communicates with itself and with the rest of your body, right? And it communicates by electrical and chemical signals. So it's on fire all the time. It's amazing. And you'll see different areas of your brain light up if you go in an MRI scanner, you know, when you're engaged in particular activities, right? So vision is kind of here, you know,
attraction,
all those things. There's even a little part of your brain that's for face recognition and expressions, you know, but they're all interlinked. It's not just one part, but that kind of makes it simple, right? Now, when you stop actively engaging in an activity and you let your brain idle, like you'd let a car idle or whatever, we actually see more increased activity diffuse across a network in the brain than we do when you're actively engaged in stuff. And we firmly believe that, and when I say we, I'm talking about the scientific community, that is where creativity, insight, and ideas emerge. So we forget that your brain is constantly taking in information, it's filtering it, it's embedding memories. Actually, every night that you go to sleep, it takes new information in. And during non-REM sleep, at the beginning of the night, first of all, we see activity with the hippocampus, where information comes in first, deep in the brain, and this frontal part of your lobe, which is really involved in decision making and impulse control. And we see electrical activity going like mad at the first part of the night, and that's saying, oh, don't keep that. Oh, we need to keep that. Then a little later in the night, we see activity across the whole brain, which is the memories being consolidated across all the different networks of your brain. Then when you go to the later part of the night or early morning, like, you know, when you go into mainly REM sleep, dream sleep, what happens is that new information is integrated with all your previous informations where it's relevant, right? And that's why you can have those funny dreams of something happened today and it's mixed in with something from your past. And that's why you can wake up sometimes in the morning with a cool line for your joke or you know, the solution to something you've been wrestling with, because your brain's been doing the job. And so when you say those times when you come up with an idea, it just comes, your brain's been working away at the problem you set it when you kind of started writing. Yeah.
I find as well, I don't like the act of working. Oh, the other thing is, do you know what I've realized? You can direct your own dreams. So I am completely, I think we all are, like, I'm overstimulated all the time. I listen to podcasts constantly. I can't like if I'm on a tube, I have to be reading something or listening to something. And I remember reading this book and it was like, no, you need to be bored to be creative. You need to let your mind wander. And like boredom is obviously the enemy of modern life. Like we just are never bored. We never have to be bored. I've forgotten what it is to be bored. I don't like it, but I've made a concerted effort to, like, you know, when I'm walking to and from meetings or whatever, to not instantly put on in a podcast, to let my brain wander and just sit with your thoughts.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it boredom. Boredom is really when it goes to a level where it's like a frustration, and it almost can lead to, that's understimulation. Actually, everybody's, you know, when we talked about stress earlier, and everyone's concerned about what happens when you've too much stress and chronic stress. If you've too little stress, it leads to boredom and then ultimately to depression. And actually what happens is your brain can't afford to waste energy on neurons that aren't being used, and they die off and your brain starts to shrink. And I think boredom is when you have nothing to do all of the time, you know, whereas you're allowing space.
I find I'm bored. Like if I'm not taking something in, if I feel like if I'm not ingesting information from the outside world, I'm bored. I'm so used to being constantly stimulated or taking stuff in or listening to other people's stories.
But there are obviously times where something is just ticking over, when you just say, because if maybe you're doing something, but when you say you just get those ideas, obviously your brain, there's enough space in it.
When I work actively, but I also, because I'm on my own so much, that I listen to those things for company.
Yes,
so I've gotten used to that.
I'm kind of wondering, is that stimulating to avoid? Because I do a good bit of travel as well, and you are on your own.
Yeah.
Like I am on my own a lot. I tend to, actually what I tend to do is I just work all the time.
Yeah.
Because it kind of keeps you have to keep sane, you know?
Yeah.
As well.
But like I could spend my whole life doing admin. Like being a stand-up is, honestly, I think I'm going to throw this stat out there, and bearing in mind I don't understand stats, but I would say it's about like 85% admin.
Oh yeah.
And if I don't put the time into, if I don't force myself to write, you can always go, well, I have to respond to that email, I have to respond to that email, I have to book that, I have to book that train, book that flight, blah, blah, blah. You have to really push yourself to write. Because being creative, it's like, it's a bit of a drag, really.
It's kind of, it's hard, and you have to kind of get in the zone and get in. I mean, I totally get you, and I kind of was wondering, like, you know, I'm doing so much, and then I go, oh my God, I have to book that flight, and I have to do this, and then I'm kind of going, you know, I'm one of those that kind of, no, I'm up to this, I can do this, I can take this on, and I kind of take on probably too much, and then I kind of feel like a failure, and I look at all these amazing, celebrities or whatever who seem to be just doing so much, and then you kind of forget, no, hold on, they've got a PA, they've got an accountant, they've got someone packing their clothes, they've got this, that and the other, whereas, you know, most of us who are kind of mainly working for ourselves are doing everything. But what I tend to do actually is I'm very anal. Like I have an Excel file, it's always open actually on my computer with my to-do list.
Yeah, I'd love to be a bit more anal.
And I have dates of when everything is required or needs to be done. So what I do is, when my brain is not working, when it can't do the writing, the talk, or the writing, or whatever I do, that's when I do that admin stuff. Yeah. So when my brain is, I just go, okay, right, going to sit down and I'm going to do, or send the invoice, or follow up on an invoice, because you're going to have to eat as well.
I do find as well, and this is because I'm a product of my generation, that my attention span is so short now. Like, there was a time, like I have to physically buy papers. Like I've subscribed to, I don't know how many papers online, because I feel like it's an environmentally sound thing to do. But I click, I look at the headline, blah, blah, blah. I don't go into anything. I signed up to the Telegraph the other day, subscribe, because there was an article on, they finally realised what the clitoris is for.
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah. So now I think I'm a Tory now. Oh. Because apparently the Telegraph is a Tory newspaper.
No, sorry, I want to go back to the clitoris, what it's for, and then we'll move on to the other bit.
I was a victim of clickbait. That's my new joke. So apparently now they've realised how it's taken them this long. I do not know.
And who's them? Is it all men?
I don't know.
Just science.
Science. Let's throw it out there. Science.
Yeah.
And so now they've realised that when the clitoris is aroused, women are more fertile, so it slows down, it shifts, the womb shifts on an axis or something, and the sperm only enters much slower, which improves your chance of getting pregnant.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I was like, shh, don't tell lads that, because on a one night stand then they'll be like, nowhere. They'll be using it as contraceptive by not touching it. But anyway, sorry, my point was that unless I sit down with the physical, my mind just jumps all the time. All our minds do. It's like constant time travel. You're thinking about the past, you're thinking about the future, blah 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 blah. Like I've known I'm not a mindful person. I've tried to do yoga, I've tried to do meditation. I can't bear it. I just can't. I'm just like, why am I rolling around on the ground? What is this? I don't feel any more zen.
I'm the same. And actually, to be honest, when I've tried mindfulness, and I will say there's loads of evidence that mindfulness is really brilliant for your brain, and it really does work.
Doing stuff slower. Is that it?
Well, I don't know. You see, I can't just clear my head. When I stop like that, just more stuff comes into my head, and I'm going, go away. So I've never mastered it. But I won't knock it because it is good, but I've never mastered it. What I'm trying to do more of is focusing on what I'm doing when I'm doing it, instead of trying to do tons of things. And what you just said, which is the recipe for anxiety and depression, is spending way too much of our time in the past, usually regretting something you did or said, or you're judging yourself about how bad or good you were, or imagining a future that might never happen. And that's the kind of unintended consequence of us advancing as human beings with language. We're the only creatures that have that capacity. Like swans mate for life. Right. And they are devastated. The grief they go through when their partner dies is horrific. But they don't imagine them dying, if they go off for a swim and are a little bit laid back. You know? But when we imagine things like that, we feel that, and it feeds into our fear and our anxiety and all those things. But animals actually kind of tend to live in the moment.
And there's loads of gay penguins. Did you know this?
I didn't
gay
actually.
Community in the penguin world. Yeah, they have their own little pride march and everything in some of the zoos.
They're a bit stuck on the colour side of things, though. They're black and white.
Yeah, I know. There was two gay penguins were given. This female penguin.
Is it male or female and female?
What I read was it's male, and I'm sure it's both, but predominantly male and male. So this female penguin hatched an egg. Now look, I obviously don't know what the language I'm using now. Hatched an egg. I don't know if that's a thing, but I
know they keep them
had
warm,
an egg,
and I think the men help them keep it warm
as
well.
The mother obviously, she was obviously an independent woman with her own career and decided she didn't want to raise the child. So the zookeepers gave the egg to this gay couple. And they've been, I'm sure it's probably birthed at this day. They've been keeping it warm. They basically it was like a surrogate egg, this gay.
Wow.
I know, it was so cute. What was I going to say to you? Oh yeah, do you know, I read a book recently and I loved it. It was called The Chemistry Between Us.
Right.
And it was probably quite uncool now because it's very kind of
book or
gender.
Was it
pop psychology.
Pop psychology.
My fave. And it was because I was going out with a guy at the time. Your man who didn't want to have the babies, and I kept trying to bathe him. Now listen,
you kept trying to
bathe him. I just liked looking after him. I was I was saying to the girls, like, he's this huge man covered in tattoos, and I kept trying to put him in the bath and wash him. And I was saying it to the girls. Yeah, I was saying it to the girls, and they're like, "You've got a baby fetish," and I was like, "Shut up! No, I don't." So I went into this bookshop anyway, and I was looking around, and I saw this book, and it had on the back like, why do we do this? Why do we do that?
Yeah.
And it said, why when a woman falls in love does her partner become like a child to her? And I was like, oh god, yoink! I bought the book, read it, and it was saying that when a woman has sex, her body releases the same chemical, this attachment chemical that she releases when she gives birth.
Oxytocin.
Birth.
Yeah.
That's like birth. I was like, we don't stand a chance. How can you play it cool with someone who you feel like they're your child? And when they ejaculate, they kind of hate you for a second. My housemate's she's a sexual psychologist, and she was like, they have a feeling of like disdain for you almost. And we're there going, I'm like, this is my home, and he's like, get her out. It's very unfair.
Well, actually, what happens is that after you orgasm, if you're lucky enough.
Well, I don't think you even have to orgasm to have that attachment thing.
Well, no, what happens is oxytocin is released, and it's called the love hormone, and it's it's a neurochemical, comes from your brain, but it's also released in men. It is also released in men at the same time, but not to the same degree.
Yeah.
So women get a much bigger release of oxytocin, and it's also called the cuddle hormone. So she's wanting to roll over and snuggle and have a cuddle, and he's getting a little bit of it. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. But then he kind of really just wants to go sleep and leave me alone. So it's nothing to do with you ladies. It's the amount of oxytocin. But actually, over time, in a relationship that changes, and more of the chemistry is around kind of getting you into that kind of cuddlier, less lustful phase. So that kind of changes, and that's
I know, and that's kind of the big dilemma, isn't it? It's like, how do long term, like, some couples will prioritize sex, some couples won't. What happens when the sex goes, blah 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 blah. I don't know. I think my longest relationship was like 5 years.
That's so long enough, though, in terms of. I mean, by the time I was with my husband 5 years, our 2 kids were in school.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah, we married.
I am a giant child.
No, actually, that's something that I wanted to talk to you about.
My Arrested Development.
That because you said that it's kind of very interesting, and it does seem to become a little bit of a theme, wanting to. I have to say, not wanting to make you feel odd or anything. I have never felt that desire to wash my husband or any man I've been with. I was actually, I often wonder, I do honestly wonder, do I have some maybe more male hormones in me than females? But I definitely wanted to always be the boss. I think I am quite alpha. Like, I'm quite in all other areas of my life alpha. But when I'm in love, like, I'm in hook, line and sinker. Yeah. And I'm like there. But that takes a form, because in love for everybody is different depending on, so okay, there's the, there's the innate thing, but the shape and form it takes is completely to do with, your environment, your experience, your genes, everything. And like, as I get older, I realize my patterns. Like, I don't want to really be adored. Like, I find that really uncomfortable. I don't like that. So I end up being the one that adores them. I obviously make decisions, and I kind of go out with lads who are, complete commitment phobes. That's been my pattern. Do you think that, though, is around a challenge? Oh, probably. It's probably all ego based. I can. Or you see, the thing is as well, we often want what we can't have, and that's kind of what makes it interesting too, isn't it? Yeah. Like, I found that my experience is men who pursued me for a long length of time got taught when I say gave in, when I decided to give it a go, they lost interest fairly fast. They did. Yeah. Yeah, see, there's something exciting about the chase as well. Totally. And I think the longer it goes on, they kind of can pedestalize you, and then they realize you're just a normal person, and they go. So, like, I would never kind of take the bait on that again. If there's some long-term lad trying to, like, seduce you, I'm like, no. Danger. Stranger danger. Yeah. It's interesting. I want a man who's not really that interested in me, is what I'm saying. But you do. You want him to be. So what you want to do I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. Xanax, really, basically, at all times. I don't know myself at all. So that kind of struck me, actually, when we met first on that documentary, like that you were kind of, self-analyzing. We kind of all do that. But it kind of struck me because I'm just about 20 years older than you, so it kind of struck me that you were saying, I'm already this age, and and I've this, and a part of that, I think, is, and maybe I'm wrong, you're noticing your age. Is it that the wondering about having a baby, was that the main thing, or was it just age per se, getting older? It was both, like, right. Because I knew with that guy that, like, he wasn't going to change his mind. The way, like, that I felt at the time, because we were very in love, and we were living together and all that jazz, that I was like, this is a decision I need to make. Like, am I okay with this? Did you think if I don't like that, not wanting to have a baby would help gel the relationship, that you wanted to also not want to have the baby? No. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? I knew that for me to kind of accept that meant that obviously there was a part of me that didn't really want kids. Like, I didn't want them enough to walk away from him. But you were accepting it at one stage. You were saying, I'm quite happy. Yeah, and I still don't know if I'll do it. Okay, but you're not as adamant as you were. Do you think the process of the documentary kind of changed that a little bit? Kind of, when it was like, it terrified me, like, that there are so many women out there who are like, I shouldn't have done it, motherhood's not for me. And I joke saying in my stand-up that we made that heinous decision to destigmatize mental health, so now when people are struggling they tell you, and I don't really mean that, but maybe I do on some level, but I mean that now, because I'm a bit older, I see how hard being a parent is. So when you're young, you're a bit ignorant, really. You don't know. You just assume you'll grow up and you'll get married and you'll have kids, and
that's just what people do. And then as you see people, how hard it is, and people struggling. And like, I've had friends turn around to me and be like, don't do it. Like, they're like, don't have kids. It's not what you think it's going to be. That's terrifying. So I'm thinking, maybe I'm not cut out for it.
I know I read something when I was reading one of your interviews, or maybe I listened to it because I've been immersing myself in Joanne. But in one of them, you said something about, about that biological clock ticking, and you were kind of saying, I've only a few years left, and maybe I could push it out to 45 with a little bit of help, and that means I'd be raising a baby in my 50s and I'd be exhausted. And actually that jumped out at me, because I'm saying, well, I'm in my 50s and I actually have much more energy than probably I had in my 20s. You see, there's that kind of funny thing as well.
Like, I think most people would say, I think they would. I think a lot of people would say, like, if you speak to people, like, that's kind of, I think the body is an amazing thing, and we're so well built that the reason you're fertile when you're young is you will have the energy to raise kids.
But we've screwed that over. I mean, biologically, we're far better off having our babies actually in our teens. And I can't say anything lower than 16, because that would be misconstrued. But the body is actually, that's the time when it's fertile. And when you're most fertile, your eggs are freshest, they're youngest. Sounds like talking about breakfast, but that's the truth of it. If we're just going straight down to the biological of it. Plus, your cervix is softer, so apparently it is much easier to give birth.
Oh yeah, I think they just pop out.
Older, you just kind of have a baby. So, I have to say, because I really was interested in reading, because really what you're doing is letting us inside your head, in your brain, when you're talking about some of these things. And I think it's really helpful for other people. I mean, I know you're not an agony aunt, but sometimes comedy actually serves that purpose in a way.
It does, yeah.
Thank God your brain is working, because mine's not working very well at the moment. I love how Joanne's super brain works. It jumps about a bit, but not in a flighty way. She thinks laterally, and she sees patterns and makes connections. She's always trying to make sense of the world, always trying to understand it and the people that inhabit it. A curious brain is a super brain. I hope that you never lose that childlike curiosity, Joanne. Joanne is currently bringing her brilliant brand of comedy to venues throughout the UK and Ireland. Check out her website, joannemcnally.com, to find a show near you. Grab a ticket if you can. You won't be disappointed. Thank you to Collaborative Studios. For regular updates and bonus material, follow Superbrain Podcast on Instagram and at Sabina_Brennan on Twitter. Subscribe to Superbrain on Apple, Spotify, Google, Acast, or wherever you consume your podcasts. And remember, if you love it, rate it, review it, and share it. My name is Sabina Brennan, and you've been listening to Superbrain, the podcast for everyone with a brain.